Hi there, my name is Kendrick, and today I get to interview Nicole. So Nicole, welcome.
Hi.
Nicole, can you tell us your full type, please?
Yeah, so I am a double feminine ISFJ jumper. So SI, TI, sleep, blast, play, consume.
All right. And what did you think and how did you feel when you got your results back?
So I was like half surprised and half not. Most people when I got my typing video had guessed SI savior. So I I mean I guess everyone thinks this, but I thought I was an ENFP. So, everyone types themselves backwards. But enough people had guessed SIFI. No one from my video thought TIFE. So that was probably the most surprising part. And probably the part that I like the most, I think, because I don't understand it. I think once I understand it, I'm going to be like, I'm not a fan of that. But yeah, when I first got it, I was like, this is not great, especially because I saw my twins were Zack Snyder and Ray Romano, and I was like, oh my God. But like, as I've been processing it for like 2 weeks, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to see the patterns and like kind of enjoying the connections more from it.
Gotcha. Right. So you're Zack Snyder then.
Yeah. Not great.
That's funny. I guess people don't like their type twins. But so uh you said that most people saw the SI. Does that mean when you talk, you're like step by step by step, line by line by line, kind of, with like, and especially your lead ST, right? So it's like sensory
Yeah.
report after report. Can you talk about being like like that sensory reporter kind of person?
Yeah, I think what most people saw in my video was like maybe like an overly detailedness. So like when I'm talking about something, I will explain it maybe the big picture, like the first sentence, but then I'll just keep going. Like I'll keep explaining because every little detail is fascinating to me, but it's not fascinating to everyone else. And then the ST, I don't know. I'll have to think more about how it comes up in my personal life. I do see it a lot like at work where I've been told before, and now it's like finally clicking. They're like, oh, there's been times where I've asked questions or talked to people about something, and they're like, wow, I don't know why you needed that much clarity. Like, I feel like I'm just being thorough, but like to someone else, that's like a ridiculous amount. And so now getting this typing, I'm like, oh, it's kind of clicking. Trying to think what else. Yeah, I think like, and also like sometimes like a matter of factness too comes with the ST. Like, and then I guess there have been a few times where I'm starting to see more like as like the flip of the NF ruining the vibe. Like sometimes you state things that like, to me, I'm like, oh, you just have to state this thing. But it's sometimes like there's unspoken things you don't need to mention. And I can see myself doing that now a little bit more clearly.
Right. So you have feminine SI. Does that mean you have a bad memory when it comes to facts and details, even though you're very thorough?
Yeah.
So how do you function then? Wanting to be as thorough as possible, but then forgetting the facts and details.
It's not great. Yeah, I feel like it's like I'm trying to like my memory is like I don't know, like a slippery ball that I'm like trying to catch. And so I'm trying to meet a standard that's impossible for me to meet because I have this feminine SI. And then I don't quite understand it yet, but like I feel like the double masculine consume then adds to it. Like I have both, like I'm trying to catch and figure out this like sensory that I can't remember. And then I have like this awful like demon NE that's like creating fears in me.
You also have masculine TI as part of your first animal. Does that mean that for you personally, working is very personal? Like doing the actual work is something that you prefer to do away from the tribe and you do it yourself, and then later you can present it to them once it's all ready and finished, whatever it is that you're working on?
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. I do, it's kind of interesting because I feel like I have both a good type and a weird type for what I do. So I work in marketing at a nonprofit. So like some of that makes sense. But like a lot of the work we do is collaborative. And so like there's people on my team that like the way of working is like they brainstorm together. So they have higher play, or maybe they have TE. Versus for me, like I am maybe okay brainstorming or pinging back and forth once I've had a chance to like develop my own like TI ideas and feel like it's my own. Versus if I'm just sharing, I feel like I get this like protectiveness over ideas. And so I want that like moment to like develop it on my own, or have a chance to feel like I fully digested an idea rather than just throwing out like dumb shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Your sleep is ST. This is your first animal. Because you have ST sleep, do you feel like being competent is very important to you?
Yeah. And I don't feel like I am a lot of the time. I think that's why I thought it was my demon. So
Right.
like if someone was to say that I am competent, or like if that was a compliment I would get from someone, that would mean a lot.
In what area of life do you strive competency, like that you want to be like really good at?
I would say mostly my job. I think that's like kind of my IJ box for sure. That's like the one. I wouldn't say like I'm particularly like a stereotypical like IJ person, except at work. Like if I have a project or I have something that I'm working on, I would want to make sure that I am like both competent and like doing 100%. Like I'm excelling. I think it's more than competence. Like maybe this is part of the TI. Like I want to like make sure I'm not making any mistakes, but I also want to be doing something like exceptional and have exceptional ideas. So I think mostly in the workspace.
Do you ever project that on other people, where you might assume that competency is also like important to other people because it's important to you? Or are you aware that
Yeah.
it's like your type specifically that like really cares? So it's in a sleep position, right? So anything that's in a sleep position is extremely personal. So do you ever project that to others and like get sensitive about others also seemingly not being competent?
Yeah. There's probably ways that I do it that I don't realize. I would say, I think it's always, I think I've heard other people mention this too, where maybe a lot of people that have lower blast, like in their work, they don't actually like work all day, or like they're not trying that hard. And I think that's like been something that's been, I don't know if like judgmental, but like I've been surprising, like a lot of friends that I have, that they like, to them, like work or what they do is just like, it's just something they do and they just get by. And I guess it's surprising to me that they don't invest more or care more how that comes across.
Right, because Tom Cruise is an ISFJ also, right? And he's double activated sleep, ST sleep. And for him, work is everything. Like he goes above and beyond to make sure that he's,
Yeah,
playing the
I'm
role.
not another person I don't want to be similar to.
That's funny. But his movies are good. Like I don't recall any bad movies he's made. Like he's, so that clearly shows you the ST is super personal to him, like he goes above and beyond for that. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, Zack Snyder, his movies are interesting, even though I don't like him. So I was like, okay. They're unique. They're like, he's very deep into his own sleep world. So that was like the only trade-off with him.
I like his style. What I don't like about his movies is they're not info dominant. There's a lot of plot holes, and it just like I can't get past it. I'm like, there's so many plot holes in your. I mean, yeah, you did all these cool effects, cool
Yeah,
battle scenes, but the story has a lot of plot holes, so it's not a good. Like if you're gonna continue on like the story, let's say for him he's doing Batman versus Superman, and then they made like Justice League and stuff.
Mm.
You got canceled for a reason because it's not the story doesn't continue properly.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like a missing like NF there. There's like not a lot of meaning. It's like just cool visual effects.
Right. Yeah, that's
Don't
true.
lead to
Yeah.
anything.
Yes, that's a good point as well. Well, I'll ask you about that in a bit, because you have it in a similar spot as him, right? He's also conceived blast. So, why don't we go to your second animal now? Your second animal is blast, and it's SF, and it's double feminine and double activated. So it's double feminine, double
Yeah.
activated. Can you share a little bit about your experience with that particular animal?
Yeah. So I think it was hard to see maybe because it is double feminine. So it is like more just like suggestive. I guess I see it. I mean, I see it at work for sure. Like I do marketing for a nonprofit. So like the whole gist of it is here are like collective values that we all need to care about. And I'm gonna literally part of my job is organizing people. I see it too, like, I guess I didn't think of myself as blast because I thought of mostly TE blast, but I feel like in a lot of my, so like, I think for like my age, I surprisingly have a lot of people that I am like their mentor. So I do a lot of like emotional, trying to think, not emotional hand-holding, but like emotional guidance of people. Even I have a woman who is technically supposed to be my mentor. She's a lot older than me. But I feel like sometimes I'm mentoring her and guiding her like through emotionally. I think part of it also is, I think maybe I have a lot of like decider friends and I'm like both a blaster, FE blaster and a double decider. So I'm like,
Right.
here's what you could do. Here's how to emotionally move through this. So yeah, I feel like I'm like the emotional, like almost, hand holder, kind of like not quite a mom to people, but like I feel like kind of sometimes.
Did you know you were a double decider before getting type? Like it was something that was quite obvious to you. Like you're like, yeah, I'm pretty balanced with self and others,
I wasn't completely sure until I watched some videos or listened to a few people, and like I guess hearing about how I guess there's a few people, a few deciders where I was like, wow, I don't worry that much. And I guess seeing how, like, once I could see the contrast with them, I was like, for sure, I'm pretty sure like that I think observer was the one point I was comfortable with. Because even like with my husband and people in my personal life, they like really freak out about interacting with people. And I'm sure, I think I offend tons of people, but I just don't even realize that we're
Yeah. So you're saying your husband is a decider?
I think he might be. He might be an EJ. Yeah.
I see. Like an ESFJ or ENFJ or something like that?
Yeah. I feel like I think we have like one axis in common and then one that's different. Because I feel like we're not totally out of sync, but there's something a little different.
Which axis do you think that you guys have in common? The TIFE?
I don't know. I'll probably say that it'll be the exact opposite. But I feel like maybe the FETI and then he might have NISE because he's not as like kind of, even in a demon, you get like a little scatterbrained and all over the place. He's not
Right.
quite like that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Back to your SF blast. Because it's double feminine, would you say that if someone is behaving inappropriately in the tribe, that you would gently nudge them the right direction instead of being aggressive about it because it's double feminine. You know,
Mm,
if someone's being like, because with FE, there's like a spectrum of values and what is appropriate in a social setting, right? You being a double decider, even though you're self above tribe, I think you would, because you do have double activated FE, I think you would still be quite aware of it. But it's double feminine, so I can't see you being aggressive, when it comes to getting people to behave properly. But what's your experience been like with that personally?
yeah. I guess I said like I act as a mom to people. I think the more accurate description is like a therapist.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I think the suggested, like the feminine FE maybe comes out more like asking questions. Like, why do you feel that way? What, rather than telling like someone, if it was masculine, I might be more like, don't do this.
Right.
It's like I'm trying to like handhold you or guide you to what should have been done, or like what I think maybe the right answer is, but I'm not going to come out and say it.
Right.
It's kind of hard to describe, but I feel like there are also situations where if a bunch of people are interacting and I feel like someone is I guess like maybe talking about themselves too much, or maybe saying something too aggressive, I'm not going to call them out on it, but I like kind of try to shift the conversation, or like maybe I'll pointedly ask to someone who's not talking, or I don't know, say something to kind of redirect the conversation. I feel like weird, it's like FE can sometimes be maybe smoothing things over, but then also I sometimes wonder if it's also more like emotionally volatile too, like comfortable with kind of like that emotional openness as well, because I see that sometimes too. I think sometimes that can make people uncomfortable.
Yeah, I do. The FE people do make me uncomfortable at times, but so
Really?
let's talk about that. Can you talk about being very open with your emotions and having your emotions not being personal at all? Like you can just say it and or express it, and it's like not a big deal. Can you share what that's like?
Yeah. I mean, to me, like emotions, I guess I think so. I think the reason I thought I was ENFP is because like that's how I interact with the world, is the NF. Like I find hearing people's emotional, like what they're thinking about, what they're passionate about, like their emotions, interesting. So what I found is like maybe sometimes the FE can feel invasive, because I'll literally ask someone, how did that make you feel? Was that, I don't know if I've said it quite like this, but like, was that upsetting, or like what? And to me, that's just an interesting question, but I can see that it's triggering in someone. So I don't know, to me, like, I don't know, the TI and FE is still really surprising, but to me, it's just like an interesting thing to talk about. And to me, it's actually triggering to me when I feel like people are hiding their emotions. Because like I feel like I don't know. I'm like, what are you hiding from me? So I feel like I'm trying to just let it go. But definitely when I was younger, I like almost would try to prod people, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I can trust you unless I see those emotions out
Right.
of you. Yeah.
And then the TE people is like, well, tell me how this works. Can you explain?
Yeah.
Because
And I'm
otherwise I
like, no,
can't
that's
trust you.
personal.
Otherwise I can't trust you to know what you're doing. All right. So it sounds like you were talking about NF play there, because that's your third animal is NF play. So I guess sharing the vibe with the tribe is something that you would enjoy, especially have it third in a hobby position. So do you enjoy asking people what they're up to, like what their beliefs are, purpose, meaning, religion, maybe, theology. Do you enjoy those kind of conversations with others,
Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't love, but I don't mind just like chit chat, like just talking about stuff. But I love when you just like start to have a conversation with someone, and then like you hear What do they want to do with their lives? What do they really care about? That gets me like really excited, because then I feel like I know them, and I'm obviously being self-above tribe most invested in what I do, but I get really invested in like, I hope they accomplish whatever they want. I guess like to me, like people's passions and like also find like cultural things very interesting too. Like what are like values compared between our culture versus other cultures? What are like trends? I find all that very interesting, but like kind of more intrinsic.
Right, right. Yeah, and you use the word interesting a lot, which is very NE, like, like
Oh, really?
people with NE abuse the word interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, people with SE like to use the word cool a lot,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm becoming more aware of like over repeating trends I have, or over
Yeah.
repeating.
No, it's okay. I have NE like you, so I like to use interesting also. And even my
Yeah.
friends, like if I'm texting them something interesting, they'll actually tell me interesting, but if they have NE, if they don't have NE, they won't say it like that frequently, So
Yeah.
yeah.
I noticed in the Facebook group, when I can't think of something to say to someone, I say, interesting, ... Like that is my go-to.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's a good like fallback comment. Because you're energy dominant, would you say you prefer an exchange of energy with people as opposed to exchange of information? Like, when it comes to, how they say about energy doms, they like to vibe, they like to
Mhm.
they like to be goofy and
Yeah.
goof off. Would you say you're that kind of person?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I do like to like have conversations and like share information back and forth. Um, so yeah, I think that's maybe the hardest one for me to see. But it's hard for me so some people when they talk, they talk and then you're silent and then you talk. That's definitely not how I communicate. I'll be like, I really want to nod and like make like indicate that I'm listening, and I kind of want that like more back and forth. So maybe that's a little bit more energy dom. And then I do really like to laugh with people, like be goofy and feel like I don't have to be like super formal with people.
I think there's a huge difference between energy dom that has extrovert sensing versus introvert extrovert intuition. I think like the humor is super different. I feel like people with extrovert sensing, their humor is more slapstick like, or more more like
Yeah.
blatant. Well, like the NE needs to have like some kind of cleverness behind it, for it.
Yeah, like absurdity a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like people with NE tends to be more troll like, so they'll troll someone or prank someone, right? But it's more like ninja like. It's more, it's not so obvious, it's almost like an inside joke when you're like making fun of someone because they don't get it,
Yeah.
But then your play is NF, so how would that come across for you? Because I have NT play, right? So for me, when I am joking around, it's quite offensive because it's the opposite of SF, right? So it's like it's gonna be very offensive with my play. Like a good example of someone with NT play uh is it Sacha Baron Cohen, the Borat guy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and if you watch his like movie, they're funny as hell, but they're super offensive too, right? So
Yeah.
so it's like that's like the kind of humor that like people with NT play would use, right? So yours is NF, so I'm kind of curious, like it's gonna be more friendlier, but it will still have like that prankster vibe to it. Like how do you like what's going on there when you're messing around we're messing with a tribe, for example?
Yeah. I think maybe it's like this. Well, I'm not Sacha Baron Cohen, but definitely like the joke. I think it's like kind of that poking, like wanting to like both wordplay, joking back and forth with people, and then teasing people. I think maybe the FE is I back off maybe quicker. So like I think I made, we had a meeting the other day, and I think I said something like very, very harmless to one of my coworkers, just trying to like, because once I feel comfortable with someone, I'm kind of like joking around with them. But I saw her look of discomfort, and so I just immediately backed
I
off.
see. I see.
Yeah.
What were you
So
joking
I
about? Like,
what
yeah, what were you joking about? And then what happened that made you realize, oh, time to back off,
it wasn't. It's not a very good story because it wasn't even that funny. We're just making fun of her because she's in Miami and she's talking about how cold it is. And I was laughing at her sweater because she had like this ridiculous sweater on. So it wasn't like funny or a big deal, but she kind of had this suddenly had this weird look and feeling. And so I was like, okay, we'll change the conversation. So it was less like I felt bad, but it was more like, okay, this isn't worth, like, even if it's totally harmless, it's not worth dealing with it.
Right. Yeah, I recently went on a trip to a tropical destination. I went snorkeling, and me and my girlfriend joined the tour, and everyone on the tour was French, from France, except for me and her. And then like at one part of the tour, there was like a lot of sharks, right? That was like started coming towards our boat and like circling us and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I had to crack in like an NT joke. I said, "Oh, here comes the sharks to feed in their favorite food, the French." Like, and, and no one got my joke because everyone spoke French, right? But like,
Yeah.
I was, but it's kind of offensive too if you think about it, because everyone's French and the sharks circling them,
I mean, I guess to me that's not that bad.
Yeah.
I might laugh out of awkwardness. I don't know. Me too. There's like so many jokes that don't land, and that moment when everyone just stares at you and you're like, what do I do?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I have FI, so I'm self-amusing, right? So even though I'm tribal of self, I still have FI, so I will self-amuse, no problem. Okay, let's go with your fourth animal, which is consume. Your consume is NT, and it's double masculine, but it's fourth, so it has a lot of weird, factors about it. I do know that regardless of the position of your animal, the moment something is double masculine, you can see it. So can you share your experience with that double masculine NT consume?
Yeah. Let me think. So I think I don't consume a lot, but once I do consume, it's like kind of, I don't want to say all consuming, but like I get like totally absorbed, and I get obsessed with something. But it's like I don't allow myself to do it that often. Or I guess because it's NT, once I've figured something out, it like I won't let the idea go, but I don't allow myself to almost see big picture enough. I get fixated on things rather than going big picture. So yeah, I'm trying to practice it more. Like video games, I think are a good NT consume because it's like literally trying to figure out a pattern in a safe format. Like it's like teaching you patterns that you figure out. But my demon what?
Which game are you playing to practice the NT consume?
I'm not playing the hard games at all. I've tried. I'm playing. There's the Kirby Forgotten Land, so it's like puzzle games.
Right.
So yeah, you like figure out a puzzle and you figure out, okay, this is what I have to do to get through this, or you have to find items. So being more aware of what's out there.
Do you enjoy playing? Because that's consume, right? Like playing a game.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy it? And answer this question first before I go to the second one.
Yeah. So I enjoy it some of the time. I think I freak out and stress out a lot with some games because it's like I get fixated on failing or the possibility of something bad happening, even though I know it's a game.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. But it's like, who cares if you die? It's just a game. You're just trying to figure this out. But like the me dying is like freaks, like it just becomes this thing. there was that guy, was it Lucky Palmer or something? There's a new video game designer who actually was like trying to create a video game that you would actually die in real life if you died in the game. And I'm like, that's not good for me because I'm already there. Like my mind's already like triggered by that.
Right.
So I kind of like it. And then sometimes it's awful and I get really stressed.
Well, it makes sense, I guess, for your type. You're an IJ, so you're
Yeah.
scared of chaos, and then
Yeah.
you have TI, so you don't like being wrong, like it's right or wrong, right? It's like it's a weird TI thing, I guess. You know. So the proper way to use anti-consume is to when you get stumped, you would use your consume, the anti-consume specifically to find a solution, right? Because it's anti, so it's like figuring a solution to your problem, essentially through a new information, right? But you said you don't consume that much. So when you run into a problem, normally like INTPs and ENTPs, they would go to consume to find the solution to the problem, right? Because it's problem solving. But because you consume last, although it's double masculine, what do you do when you run into a problem? Do you try to push through it before consuming, or do you just like bother your husband or someone else? Because you know, consume last people tend to bother the tribe for information instead of researching themselves. So what happens for you personally?
Yeah, I think I definitely have, in one of my, I think in my typing video, at one point, I talked about having this problem of like literally smashing my head against the ceiling when I want something. And I think I definitely have a mode of like not considering other possibilities. I'm like, I need to do this. I need to just work harder or keep, pushing. And sometimes like the best thing to do is like what you're describing is like, okay, maybe there's another option. But I get like so panicked. I don't even think to see that. So that's kind of like, I mean, that's the reason I got typed, is like that's actually becoming a big problem. And that's why I'm hoping maybe I will develop my consume because it's become a big problem. I also do like the banging the head on other people too. Like if one of my big things is I can't find things in the house. And so I just immediately ask my husband, or I'll ask other people other questions because I'm like, I don't know how. Oh, I don't think it's even a conscious process. I'm like, I don't know how to find this. I'm gonna ask somebody.
It's funny, you said that you would rather just work harder than to entertain the idea of trying something different, or exploring something new, to find the answer to your problem. I'm an EP and my girlfriend's an IJ, so I can relate to what you just said, because when we travel, sometimes we're trying to find a flight back home, but for my girlfriend, the way she would look at it is like, okay, we're in this country that we're in right now. We need to find a way back home from this country only. But for me, I would actually think, we can go to this other country first because this country has more flight availabilities. So from here we can channel change and then find our path home. She's like, wow, I didn't even know you could do that. Like you could just go to a different place, like to find it. So it's kind of interesting to see that, like, that dynamic with the IJ and EP, like the EP's like, yeah, no, you can just switch something different and then there's no problem. But then, it's like with double observers, they always know which one is the right thing to do in the moment. Because like for IJs like you, it's like, let's keep doing the same thing until it fixes itself. But for EP, it's like, let's keep channel changing until the solution presents itself. But really the answer is somewhere in the middle, right? It's like, no, there's a time you just need to work hard and focus and plow through it. But there's a time when you need to channel change. So in that sense, both of us, being EP and IJ, that's our blind spot. So can you talk about having that blind spot? Not being able to double observe as well as those IP and EJ individuals, and like not being able to distinguish which is the right path to pick at the moment.
Yeah. I think when you asked how I knew I wasn't, or if I knew I wasn't a decider, I think the main thing was when Dave was talking about like printer problems, and I was like, oh my god, that's so triggering, printer problems. So it's more the observer problems were so triggering. Yeah.
You got printer problems?
Oh my God, I hate printers. Or I hate, I don't know. Well, I guess I've always been kind of an old person, but as I get older, like more tech problems, I'm like, why doesn't this work? And probably maybe all observers have this problem, but if I was doing more inning, I'd be like, what is different here? I'm just like, oh, it doesn't work like I'm supposed to. That's an interesting question. I'm trying to think how to answer that. So I can't do that. I can't do any, it just takes a lot of effort. I think that's the big thing, is like I could switch back and forth better. So the example you gave is interesting because I feel like when I travel or I'm doing something fun, that's when I can access my NE. So like when my husband and I planned a trip, I was like, okay, we could do this if we need to reroute our like our plans, or if this happens, we could do this. I guess because it didn't feel like as life or death. I'm like, it was just a trip. I feel like the stakes need to be really low for me to just feel that comfort of doing that.
So I've interviewed a lot of IJ types, and the
Mm.
one thing I've noticed with IJ types is IJs love traveling, but they need someone to drag them to do it. Can you do you relate with that, or can you do it yourself without someone dragging you to do it?
I think that's mostly people dragging me. I think that's true for like almost any consume that I do, like anything, it's like someone recommended it. I do like, so I've done this like weird, I guess even not realizing what my problems were. I do make random lists and I force myself to like consume or look up things. Like I have certain sets amount of time where I actually have to force myself to web browse. And then I will find things and I will like plan, like maybe decide to plan some trips based on things that I've seen from there. So it's mostly people recommending it, but there's been like, now that I'm doing kind of this forced consume, I do find and plan a few things myself. And then but I have to force someone to come with me. I'm never gonna go by myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a sense of satisfaction when you do use the consume, would you say?
Oh yeah. I did it because I didn't have anything to do tonight. I forced myself to do some consume and I was like, oh, this is so fun. I did like literally 10 minutes of it. I was like, oh, look at this.
Yeah. I spoke to some IJs about this before, and I want to hear your take on this. But a lot of IJs tell me when they go on vacation, they become an EP, and they're like, I don't want to plan anything. I want to just wing it, just have fun, completely relax, you know, let my hair down, just have fun, like what is the vacation you like when you swing to the EP? Because everyone is essentially like if you're an IJ, you are also an EP, just depends where you are on the swing. And kind of like David Shannon has been saying nowadays that EJs and IPs are pretty much the same. It just depends where they are on the swing, because EJs are supposed to be they can be the most narcissistic type when they're on their IP swing, right? And then IPs can have like self-hatred, kind of like EJs would, depending on where they are on the swing. And then vice versa, like the EPs can be very controlling depending on where they are on the swing, and IJs can be very chaotic, causing chaos for other people depending where they are on their swing. So when you have your EP swing, what does that look like? Like the good and the bad,
Yeah. It's so interesting because I think when I got my type, I told my husband about it and he's like, what? He's like, oh, how are you savior control? How are you not savior chaos? So I think it definitely comes out in travel. I don't like to plan a ton for traveling because if I'm going to plan, I'm going to like over plan. So I like that's a space where I feel like I can have the freedom to just do whatever. Um, and then I feel like I saw this in some of my videos, but when my life like becomes unintentionally chaotic, I go into like manic phase and I'm just running with the chaos. But like you can see like I'm totally freaked out and I'm making it more freaked out. Um like I do logistics and I had to pack these koozies, and I guess in one of my videos I was talking about them, but I couldn't like, I don't know, I was just like throwing them everywhere because I was trying to pack them. Um so yeah, I think it like I just kind of ride and end up creating more chaos because I get in these like manic phases.
So when I travel with my INTJ girlfriend,
Mhm.
oh my god, she causes so much chaos. Like, especially right now, during the pandemic and stuff, you need extra documents when you travel, like vaccination records, more extra paperwork and stuff. And then she would literally like open her luggage and like and she has feminine SE, right? So she'll like make a huge mess
Oh, yeah,
all over
yeah,
the
yeah.
airport, like freaking out looking for the document that she can't find because she has feminine sensory. And I'm like, just calm down, just relax. She's like, she's fully triggered, and I'm like, she's not gonna calm down, and she's just causing so much chaos in the airport. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh my god, like what? But actually, ironically enough, on our last trip, we went to Nepal, and they asked her, it's like, where do you have your this form filled out? And she like literally like just made a huge mess in front of the immigration, and then the person was just like, you know what, just go in, and because you don't want to deal with this BS, right? Like,
Yeah.
I was
I
like,
mean,
huh,
I guess that's like triggering for me to listen to because I feel like that's every trip I go on.
yeah.
Because I, even being savior sensory, I don't, if someone hands me something, I'm gonna lose it. Like every single time we've gone, like try to get on a plane, try to go into a movie theater, I've like lost the tickets. And now I'm like ripping apart my purse. Like there was one time we were in Cambodia and I couldn't find like whatever visa we needed, and I just like dumped everything across the airport floor. Like yeah, it was bad.
If people are staring at you and stuff.
Yeah. And that's making me more stressed. So I'm getting more manic.
Yeah.
And I'm not being like calm, like, where could it be? Let's think about this. I'm just like, I'm gonna rip apart this and try to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Did you find it?
Yeah, I always eventually find it, which is a problem because then I'm like, okay, well, I don't need to change anything.
Yeah. Okay. Then I guess you have to clean up after your mess.
Yeah, yeah.
That's funny. Um, yeah, IJs are definitely crazy when traveling. Um, all right, let's talk about your sexual modalities. You are tester and you are visual. Tester is smell, but it's different because you have SI. So SI and SE tester are super different.
Uh,
Um, so I've noticed with the SI testers, you have like your favorite scents, whether it be candles or food.
hmm,
Can you share a little bit about like your favorite smells or food?
huh. That's interesting. Um, I guess I don't know. I think I feel like I'm more visual. Like there's definitely visual things or tastes. Um, so I cook a lot. And I do like certain smells. Like if I'm making something like I guess like really cinnamony, like things that feel like seasonal, like fall, or like remind, I guess this is very SI, things that remind me of like childhood or home, that feel like something that like your mom or like a family member would cook, um, or feel like very nostalgic. I kind of like those kind of scents. Like Thanksgiving, here in the US, all our Thanksgiving foods get me excited.
I see. So something that like teleports you back to that moment in the past.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, okay, I see. That makes sense. What about the visual side? Can you talk about like being a visual person, learning through
Mm,
visuals or having very good visual memory?
yeah. Um, So I make a lot of art. Like, so it's interesting. I guess like two things to your question. One is, I think visually, I remember things a lot better visually. Like when I meet people, I'm really bad at names. Like I have a hard time with remembering people's names and like pronouncing them, but I can remember a face. Like once I've met someone, even years later, and they don't remember me, I'll remember their face. And then the flip side is, I think I put an overemphasis on visuals and underemphasis on other things. So like the reason I got into video games is because I used to make art for video games.
Oh, really?
But then, yeah. So
What do you mean art for video games? Like the graphic design or just like?
yeah. So like the 3D modeling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like mostly in the environmental pieces. I did it like amateur games. But like we made a game that was like a girl exploring, and other people did like the programming and the design, like the actual like the mechanics of the game, but I would make like the trees in the background. So I really enjoyed that, like visually creating that world. But it was just awkward that I was trying to, I guess maybe this is a very Blaster thing. I was really interested in making games, but I didn't actually play them. And I actually got called out by someone. They're like, how can you be in a video game program and not play? Because he'd asked me what games I was playing, and every week I'd tell him the same game.
Which one?
And he got really upset at one point. And I was like, so I like forced myself, gave myself the homework to play games. I was interested in making them. I didn't care as much about playing them.
It's so funny. That's not a homework, that's fun, but I guess for a consume last person, it's a homework. That's so weird. But what was that one game that you played that was the only one?
I can't remember. What was it? Oh, Okami. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No, I have not.
Huh?
No, I have not.
Oh, okay. It's kind of like a Japanese art. I don't even remember it. I didn't get very far. I obviously didn't like it that much, but I kept mentioning it to him.
I see. That's funny. You know what? I was thinking about this a few days ago. I was like, okay, there's the sleep blast play consumes, or the variation to be blast sleep play consume. And then there's people like me, the super crackhead play blast consume sleep. So how come the consume last people get more things done than the sleep last people? Because the sleep last people, they're sacrificing their health to execute, right? So shouldn't we get things more done? So I was thinking about it just like a few days ago. I remember I was at work, I was doing the laundry. I work in a fitness industry.
Oh, okay.
So I had to wash, like, part of my job is to wash the rags that people used to clean after the machine after they're working out. Everyone gets a hand towel, right? When they work out and stuff. So I was just like there thinking about this for some reason. And then I was like, oh, I get it now. Because those consume last people, when they're finished work, they go to sleep. They don't they're not like consuming. And for me, when I get off work, I'm gonna consume now. And then I don't get enough sleep. Then I'm tired the next day. And then when I'm tired, I don't get as much work done, but I can't sleep without consuming first, because I have to consume. It's like my first three, right? That's just like you have play in your first three. So maybe at the end of the day, you want to talk with your husband or socialize with people, right? So like, but you don't need to consume, because it's consume last, so I was like, okay, so that's the difference between the consume last and the sleep last. But the thing that I noticed with consume last people, I don't know if you relate with this. I guess you're still pretty young then, right? Are you in your 20s?
I'm 32.
Yeah, so you're still pretty young. So, but I noticed people with consume last, as they get older, they somehow, like, I guess this is worse for certain consume last, but I noticed that they start becoming more hopeless. Like they feel like they have nothing to live for. It's like, even like let's say you are a super blaster and you make lots of money. Now you have all this money. Like now what? You just can keep working,
Yeah.
like enjoying life and consume, right? So a lot of like I noticed with a lot of consume last people as they get older, a lot of them start getting hopeless unless they learn to consume,
Hmm.
you know. So do you feel like that kind of stuff happen is to you? It's like I don't know what to look forward to because like besides working, because
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
or socializing, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had that challenge like um with I guess with jobs when there's like a moment where I don't have anything I need to do. I'm like what do I do? I think if I don't have people around, like I don't have like a community or fun things to do with people, not on my own, or I don't have like some value to give, there's a lot of questioning, like, what is the point? Like, I have a lot of existential like crises about like, what is my purpose unless I'm doing something, unless I'm giving something or I'm having some connection with someone. So that is definitely a fear I have, is like I don't want to get to the end of my life or even several years down and be like, did I enjoy life? I think it sounds like maybe that's a little less with NT consume, maybe some other types.
Right.
But definitely like if I'm not doing something or with people, I'm like, what's the point? And I feel I do consume, but I feel incredibly guilty when I do.
Yeah, I guess if your consume was SF or NF, it's worse. Because
Yeah.
you did all the TE, but then there's no F to enjoy later on.
Mm.
But because you do have NT consume and it's fourth, is there a part of you that feels like scared that you might not be smart or something? Because NT is all about intelligence, right? So is there a part of you
Yeah.
that gets insecure about that?
Yeah. I say like sometimes I don't think before I speak a lot of the time, and I'll say something and there's I can't think of a good example, but like I think one time I went on a date and a guy tried to give me like some sort of like he was terrible, but he gave me some sort of like math problem and I just said the first thing that came to my head because I wasn't even thinking through what he was saying. And he's like, wow, that was really dumb. And that was like I was like, that's like the worst thing for me. Like that felt very triggering.
Yeah.
So yeah, I worry about that. I mean, I hated school a lot. Cause I could figure things out, but I didn't like having to like sit and learn at all.
Right.
And then it would bring up these fears that I wasn't smart enough.
Right. That sounds like a bad first date or date then if
Oh
someone
yeah,
would
that
call you
was
stupid.
awful.
Yeah, someone
That says
stupid.
more about him than me, but
Yeah.
it did bring up, I was like, maybe someone else wouldn't be as triggered by that.
Yeah. Okay, that's kind of funny. I guess it's funny now. Um, I'm curious. So, because you're double feminine, do you see the tribe as soft and cuddly and friendly? They're not threatening, or how do you perceive the tribe with that feminine FE?
Yeah. I think I like most people. I definitely think of myself as I worry about me being scarier than other people being scarier. Like I definitely feel like uh I worry about being too blunt with other people rather than there's very few situations where I'm like, oh, I'm worried what this person will say. And I feel like sometimes that makes me naive about people. Like there actually have been people that were not helpful or like didn't have my best interest in heart. But I was like, oh, everyone's like nice, we're gonna get along. And then
Yeah.
later on, I found out this was like an issue.
Right. Right. Yeah. I can. I know what that looks like.
Mm,
Especially
yeah,
with the feminine DEs, you're getting tricked or someone's not nice to you, but you
yeah,
still act the friendly and stuff. So maybe it's worse for DIs than DEs, because DEs I think are more aware of motives of the tribe. I feel like, you know,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions I have for you today, Nicole. So,
Okay.
do you have any last questions or comment before we wrap this up?
No, thank you, Kendrick. It was great getting to talk with you.
Yeah. Well, it was nice chatting with you as well, Nicole, and learning more about your type. You know, it's pretty rare, not many ISFJs around. So I think it's pretty cool that you did this interview and more people can see more ISFJs, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, you too.